We're going to take your phone calls this hour with Jeffrey Smith, so let's get ready to go in a moment on Coast to Coast AM. And welcome back to Coast. George Norrie with you, Jeffrey Smith, and your phone calls. Jeffrey, you believe that 5% of the shoppers, food shoppers, can make a difference. Tell me about that.
Well, we've seen tipping points happen where just a small percentage of people make a huge difference. We talked about what happened in Europe. It's happening with bovine growth hormone, where it's driving it out of the market, even though it's a small percentage of people that are making their milk choices for the healthier non-RBGH brands. In fact, in India, on February 4th, a 30-minute anti-GMO documentary was launched by a top Bollywood producer, Mahesh Bhatt. It's called Poison on the Platter. And the frenzy of media around this in just 10 weeks has created a kind of tipping point there where it may be virtually impossible to introduce a new genetically engineered crop. So we think that if we have as little as 5%, 15 million Americans, conscientiously avoiding brands that contain GM ingredients, then that would be enough to show a drop in market share for those using GM, a trend, and Kraft and others will eliminate it from the food supply. Now, we have targeted demographics to achieve this. The health-conscious shopper, religious organizations, healthcare practitioners, parents of young children, and we'd love to empower your listeners. In fact, we have a whole activist package, a Earth Day coast-to-coast special on our healthiereating.org to get people not only to learn about avoiding GMOs in their own lives, but to pass out the shopping guide. And the little package includes 25 shopping guides and 25 health risk brochures so people can spread it out, because the millions of listeners that you have just on this show tonight could engineer a tipping point in the United States.
All right, but how do they know? For example, let me ask you first of all, some of these specialty stores that are popping up all over the place, that have proper names that make it sound natural and organic, are those stores all GMO-free?
No. You have to, basically, you carry the shopping guide with you. It'll list the products by category. And there'll be obviously all those that are organic will be non-GMO, but there's also a bunch of them that are listed as non-GMO. But even once you learn how to avoid GMOs by reading the at-risk ingredients, I went to a supermarket the other day and just looked at ragu spaghetti sauce, and I found that the Chunky contained soybean oil and high fructose corn syrup, both from genetically engineered sources, but the ragu light contained olive oil and no corn sweetener. So
Perfect.
The same brand doesn't announce itself as non-GMO, but by learning how to read the label, it had no at-risk ingredients. Tomatoes are not genetically engineered. Olive oil is not genetically engineered. When I go out to eat at restaurants, I say, what oil do you cook in? If they say vegetable oil, I know it's probably soy, corn, cotton, or canola, so I get them to make me something in olive oil or no oil. And if they use processed foods, forget it. It's got to be cooking from scratch, and if you're going to avoid it in restaurants.
Let's go to the calls. We'll go to Dayton, Ohio. Hey, Jeff, east of the Rockies. Go ahead, Jeff.
Hey, thanks for taking my call. On the subject of milk, interestingly enough for me, ever since I started substituting rice milk for regular milk, I have not had any outbreak of eczema in my hands is where it was usually coming up. But ever since I swore that off, I haven't had any of that.
What I found is a lot of people, when they go from regular milk to organic, they also see a change. Same as people that eat soy in the United States versus soy in Europe, where it's not genetically engineered. They see a change. Now, you jumped from milk to non-milk, so your reaction may not be related to GMOs. It may be related to milk generically. So it's hard to say whether it's GMO-related.
Some people can't handle milk products either, can they?
No, and the fact is, it's hard to say whether GMOs are at all influencing your reaction to milk.
Next up, we'll go to Grass Valley, California, west of the Rockies. Good morning, Chris.
Hello, George.
Hey.
Thank you for your show and all the kickstarting it's done for my mind.
You're very welcome.
Here in California, the medical marijuana law, I was wondering, since the potency of pot, and I am a pot smoker, I'm not going to make any political decisions about that myself, but the potency of pot has gotten so much more stout, I'd say, and it's been modified a lot of ways for just the seed content and where it grows hydroponically and so forth. But it's also been tried to get be brought under control as far as the illicit use of it. Has it been subject to a lot of genetic modifications?
That's an interesting question,
and
Chris.
even inadvertent modifications from potential growers that have been operating illicitly themselves.
Jeff, is there GMO pot?
We don't know. Obviously, if the growers wanted to genetically engineer it so it wouldn't be killed when the U.S. Helicopters go and spray it in Colombia, they might do that. In fact, the tobacco industry genetically engineered tobacco to be more potent, to have higher levels of nicotine. They illegally grew it in Brazil, smuggled it into the United States, and put it into the cigarette packs sold here years ago to increase the addictive nature. This was all done illegally, all done without the knowledge of consumers. And so we don't know if pot has been genetically engineered, and we don't know if other things are. In fact, the biotech industry doesn't even have to tell the FDA if it's going to introduce a genetically modified food.
Okay, next up, let's go to Jesse in Richmond, British Columbia, Canada, on the international line.
Thank you.
Sure thing.
Jeffrey, I'd like to work with you in this call concerning glyphosate. I have some personal interest in knowing a little bit more about this particular product. The patent has expired, so it's not necessary to refer to it by its commercial name, which has a built-in baggage, and it turns people off right away. I just want to look at the product. I have not been able to find a single article in peer-reviewed journals which declare this product as even anywhere close to being carcinogenic. You made a statement, a very quick statement, and you used the word carcinogenic when you were referring to this product, except you slipped in the terminology amphibian. We are not amphibians, and when this product is used, I will never use it near a storm drain or near a river stream. In Wikipedia, the listeners can look at the way this particular product works, and I cannot, for the life of me, figure out any way it could interfere with human physiology. I'm phoning from British Columbia, and there are numerous very environmentally conscious gardeners who, when they are not in a public forum, will let you know that if the plant is eradicated using glyphosate, you can just pull it out and throw it on the compost pile, or you can use it in vegetable gardens as long as you don't eradicate what you desire in the garden. I, for example, would like to grow a little bit of horsetail because it is a fantastic source for silica, and I can go to a local pharmacy and buy a product and spend tons of money when I can get it for free. One way I can do it quite easily, I'm an older person. If I could use glyphosate whenever I find some growth which I don't want, like if it's getting out of control, I just use a brush and paint it on. And I know when I pull it out after it has stopped growing, I can throw it on the compost pile. Anytime I see a reference to this product, they just start talking about amphibians. We are not amphibians. Can you please give me your honest opinion with respect to any source you can cite that this product is carcinogenic or even close to it? I'll shut up and listen.
Okay, Jesse.
Okay, first of all, for the listeners, when we talk about Roundup and Roundup-ready crops, the active ingredient in Roundup is called glyphosate. So that's what this caller is talking about. In my book, Genetic Roulette, The Documented Health Risks of Genetically Engineered Foods, on page 147, I have 10 different peer-reviewed published references. In terms of the cancer, a very small amount of the Roundup, which is the glyphosate along with the supposedly inert ingredients, did interrupt what's called the cell cycle, which might cause cancer. But they also have links between glyphosate with Hodgkin's lymphoma, miscarriages, attention deficit disorder, Parkinson's disease. When they fed it to pregnant rats, they had changes in the enzyme levels of their liver and heart and brains, which might lead to abnormalities of the offspring, all sorts of problems like that. It's also highly related to farmers' problems that accidentally get it on them, and a lot of them have had problems that had to bring them to hospitals, etc. So there's actually a lot of information, and there's a scientist, G.E. Seralini in France, whose team has come up with some more recent evidence showing that the claims that it's safe are completely a myth. Now, Monsanto was told by two different judges, one in the United States and one in France, to stop declaring its Roundup as biodegradable, because according to Monsanto's own research, after 28 days, only 2% of the Roundup actually biodegraded. And in Denmark, they found that it contaminated the water table at 5 times the level of acceptable and considered healthy levels. And so they banned it. It turns out there's been a huge public relations spin that Roundup is supposedly safe.